I threw up from morning sickness during an interview with my ex-husband. We locked eyes, and it was awkward. I forced a smile, trying to keep it professional, and continued with the interview. "Can you tell us why you work so hard at your career?" I asked. Mark slowly replied, "Well, my wife's got morning sickness, so I gotta earn that formula money." His gaze was intense, making me squirm. We were on camera, under the bright studio lights, no hiding my reactions. I tried to act cool and kept the interview going. Mark was confident and talked openly, not like his usual aloof self. The questions were pre-approved, so it went smoothly, but I felt uneasy, like I had a guilty conscience. Finally, the director signaled to wrap it up. I smoothly finished the interview and made a quick exit without the usual pleasantries or photos. With Mark, I just wanted out of there. My assistant, Nina, handed me a thermos. "Emma, just now." She mimicked a retching motion. I gave her a big eye roll. She's been with me for a while and usually acts like a mom, with no filter. I regretted bringing her, especially in front of Mark. "Are you pregnant?" Nina asked, excitedly. I took a sip of water and shot her a look. Didn't she see Mark watching us? We were divorced, and I didn't want him hearing anything he shouldn't. But, of course, she kept talking. "Is it a young guy or an older man?" She nudged me. Then quickly apologized, my bad. Watch out for your baby." Any other day it would have been fine, but not with Mark around. "Just zip it," I snapped, glaring at her. Could it be true? Not the young guy from the studio next door. He seemed too inexperienced. Maybe that investor he did have a spark in his eye for me. "Who is it?" She pushed. "I'll sew your mouth shut," I warned. Mark stood behind me, and I felt the temperature drop. His face was grim, and I panicked, tossing my thermos back to Nina and running off. To make commuting easier, I bought a small apartment close to work. After the divorce, Mark gave me some properties, but I never lived in them. Everything about Mark felt cold and empty. When I was 15, my parents passed away unexpectedly, and then my grandpa followed when I was 20. I was left alone. I thought Mark would give me a home, but it was just a place to stay. Lying in bed, all I could think about was Mark during the interview. Damn, don't fear a bad guy, fear a handsome one. Mark ticked all my boxes, and I couldn't escape. The dream of us ended with the divorce. At one point, I hoped we'd grow old together. Eventually, I accepted that I was meant to be alone, making the divorce easier to handle. I slept terribly, waking up with sour stomach waves. Mark's face haunted my dreams. I tossed and turned until dawn. Luckily, I had the day off, or my boss would chew me out. Nina's words echoed in my mind. I instinctively touched my stomach. During our time together, Mark and I rarely talked, other than in bed. We used protection at first, but once the baby pressure started, we stopped. He was healthy, young, and fit, so getting pregnant wasn't a surprise. Could I really be pregnant? That thought tangled through my mind like Rapunzel's hair. I couldn't focus until I knew for sure, so I drove to the clinic. In the hallway, I sat with the test results, 6 weeks pregnant. The ultrasound showed a tiny sac, no clear shape yet, but the doctor said there was a heartbeat, and everything looked good. I almost laughed. Seriously, hitting the jackpot post-divorce. What luck. I should have resisted Mark's charm. Our grandpas were friends, and his grandpa adored me, calling me Little Star. As a kid, I visited the Marks a few times with my grandpa. Later visits became rare until he got sick, and Mark's grandpa reappeared. Mark and I getting together was prearranged. My uncle's business needed the Mark support, and Mark's grandpa wanted me as a granddaughter-in-law. It all fell into place. To my surprise, Mark agreed to the marriage news immediately, only asking for one thing in front of everyone, keeping it secret. This solved my problem since I was somewhat in the public eye. Initially, the elders didn't like it, but they obliged when Mark insisted. Secret marriage wasn't bad. He didn't want it public, and I had my career. Being single had its perks. Mark was aloof, so we didn't chat much. But we had great chemistry where it mattered. Before and after that was about it. I couldn't imagine his reaction to this child. He probably wouldn't care. When I asked for a divorce, he just frowned and vanished for 3 days before agreeing. He had no feelings for me and surely wouldn't care about a kid. A man's career often takes priority. I hadn't planned on telling Mark about any of it. I called Nina. "Hey, Nina, I'm at the hospital." "Yeah, I'm pregnant. The doctor says it's a real little life with a heartbeat, a special feeling." Nina rambled excitedly, making my ears ache. I never thought of ditching him, because in this world, he's the only person I'm connected with, my family. Me. A strong hand grabbed my wrist. It was Mark, with a serious look on his handsome face. Emma, what are you planning to do? Are you keeping the baby or not?" In a panic, I accidentally hit the speakerphone on my phone. Nina, that loudmouth, fired off a string of soul-crushing questions straight at my head. Mark's face turned even darker, his deep eyes narrowed, and with a twist of his wrist, not painful, but it kept me from holding onto the phone. "Yes," Mark said calmly into the phone and hung up decisively. What the heck? He's acting like a bandit. I had just confirmed my pregnancy when Mark showed up. Perfect timing, not a moment too soon or too late. Thinking about it, I owe it to my ex-mother-in-law, a hospital executive, who's been in research for decades. We did our premarital checkup here, and if anything weird happens, she'd know right away. So, probably the whole family knows by now. "Why are you here?" I clutched the report in my hand, staring him down. I felt a bit guilty but refused to show it. "To take you home." He pulled me into his arms, just the right amount of force, careful not to hurt me. Ugh. At that moment, I almost let out a string of swear words. "We're divorced, Mr. Mark." I kindly reminded him, not caring if he liked what he heard or not. Mark's face got even darker, his black eyes seemed to want to swallow me whole. He restrained his emotions and slowly let go of my wrist. I took a few steps back, crucial steps. The elevator was nearby, increasing my chances of escape. Honestly, you don't have to overthink it. The kid might not even be yours. I said nonchalantly. Men care about their ego. I hoped he did too. But my hopes were dashed by reality. Mark, a shrewd businessman, saw right through my lie, with a smirk on his face as if mocking how obvious it was. The dates add up. I doubt you had the energy to see someone else. I wanted to explode on the spot. Shameless. Truly shameless. There were times when I was too exhausted, and he'd send a driver to take me to work. During those times, I'd catch a different look on his face, like a boy's proud smile after a prank, mixed with uncertain joy. "What do you want?" At this point, lying would be childish. Since we agreed to a secret marriage, he wasn't thrilled about it from the start, and a child just complicates things. I raised my chin, looking for an answer, trying to finally draw the line. "Remarry," he said without hesitation. "Mark's rich, and he's handsome. But that's not the marriage I want. I'm an orphan, and I don't want to be alone forever. Mark's too cold, he can't give me the warmth I crave. But I won't tell him that. Mr. Mark, don't be so full of yourself. Why do you think I'd agree to remarry? The child is mine alone, and I have the means to raise him. I don't need you anymore," I said, my palms sweating. He must be furious, but that's enough. There's no shortage of women willing to have his baby. As long as I escape far enough, hide well enough, I won't have to see him again. All my youthful infatuations and frustrations were simply foolish desires. The dream's over, everything resets. Cutting losses in time, we all win. Mark clenched his jaw, his face even darker. "What do you mean?" I took a step back, glanced at the elevator, 2 more floors away. Keep the child, lose the father, got it? As the elevator doors opened, I quickly slipped inside, proudly raising my chin at him. Mark was left outside, along with his shocked eyes and that face about to ignite with anger. I took a deep breath, feeling relieved, though most of my strength had drained. Glad I dodged quickly, or I really wouldn't know how to handle his fury. Barely a few steps out of the elevator, and here we go again. I felt sick. Must be the hospital's sterile smell. I took off my mask to breathe, pulling out my phone to call Nina. Even Nina, my assistant, didn't know about my secret marriage with Mark. She grilled me non-stop, trying to dig out the guy behind the voice on the phone. I played dumb, and she threatened to ask all the guys I'd been rumored with. In the end, despite all the complaints, Nina drove me home, cleaned, cooked, and bought a bunch of prenatal vitamins. Leaning on Nina, satisfied as I munched on peach gum, if you were a guy, I'd marry you. No dowry needed, I've got the house, the car, everything, you just need to show up. Pfft, spare me, I don't have that kind of luck. But seriously, think it through, having this child alone isn't easy. Nina said worriedly. One step at a time, nobody ever got choked on pee. If I can have it, I can raise it. I laughed. Nina wanted to scold me, but couldn't vent on a pregnant woman, so she held back. Turns out Nina's a prophet. The next day at work, I felt how tough single motherhood could be. Yesterday's interview was a disaster. My pregnancy news spread like wildfire, igniting a slew of rumors about supposed fathers. In the break room, cafeteria, studio, control room, gossip everywhere. I had an outdoor shoot today. My cameraman partner was kind of subtle at first, while the young makeup artist was direct, bombarding me with intrusive questions. They were typical and predictable, yet still enough to make you dig a hole with embarrassment. Finally dodged the makeup artist, and a colleague, Linda, whispered, "Emma, speaking from experience, with how you puked yesterday, that's definitely a boy." I just smiled, not denying it. What the baby is, boy or girl, is up to fate. Why don't you seem happy? I heard rumors. Is it that sugar daddy who was chasing you? Linda shot me a knowing look and covered her mouth as she chuckled. See, you're the smartest in the company. Those young girls chasing after celebrities, only looking for handsome faces, what's it worth? In the end, it's all about the money. Even if he's older, as long as he's nice to you, that's what matters. Have a son and secure your position. The family fortune will all be yours eventually. I awkwardly laughed. Sis, honestly, that's not it. The sugar daddy is a good guy, but he takes the blame quicker than anyone else. Linda patted the back of my hand with a meaningful smile. I thought the conversation would end there, but suddenly the cameraman stormed over, slamming the camera down on the table. Whoa, that's a piece of equipment worth tens of thousands. My heart skipped a beat. Who ticked you off? Brother cameraman has a good side, but when he's mad, he loves to throw things. Anything's fine, just don't break the moneymaker. Linda's bad-mouthing you, saying you're hooked up with a sugar daddy, he fumed. I waved it off, looking unconcerned, picking up a brush and freshening up in front of the mirror. Let them talk, who cares? Linda wasn't wrong, Mark does have that sugar daddy profile. I don't believe you're that kind of person. We've worked together for years, and if you wanted a sugar daddy, you'd have gone for it by now, brother cameraman ranted, and I felt kind of touched. I said, Emma, you're a good girl, don't follow those obsessed with celebrities, getting swept away by looks. Is the kid's dad that little celebrity from a few days ago? He suddenly changed the subject, and I quickly covered his mouth. Bro, you're my bro, really. It's not that little celebrity, I never had anything with him. Brother cameraman made sure, and only half believed as he walked away. I breathed a sigh of relief, hand on my belly. Kid, life's rough. You haven't even been born and you're already dealing with this nonsense. Blame your dad. While rumors about me were flying around, Mark's gossip was just as rampant. It all started with him saying his wife had morning sickness and he needed to earn money for milk. Everyone knows Mark, a golden bachelor and poster child for success, was always single. Suddenly announcing he was supporting a family hinted at being married with kids. People don't really care about the kid, it's the marriage they care about. After all, marrying Mark is a dream for many. In the break room making milk, the gossip I overheard was juicier than any award-winning film. First version, Mark married right out of college to someone with a similar family background. A family alliance, no love but stable. Second version, Mark's spouse is foreign. His push into international markets was a cover to reunite with his wife. Third version, a whirlwind marriage to a college student 8 years his junior. Rumor says he funded a university for this lucky girl. So many other stories, past abandonment, focus on career, and now a reunion with an old flame. Some even said he was gay, which made me laugh at first, then sick. Really needed that milk to settle my stomach. Emma, drinking milk, good for you, nutritious for the baby, a pretty anchor with coffee smiled as she passed by. I could tell she was hinting at something. Yeah, less coffee for you, don't want to stain those teeth. She pouted while I sipped my milk, turning away satisfied. Trying to pick a verbal fight with me? Rookie move. After a full day of shooting outside, everything went well, just walked a lot, my calves and feet swelled up a bit. Nina was worried and insisted on taking me home. Chatting and laughing, we walked back with our food. The door was piled high with gifts of all sizes. Someone's rich. Boxes of birds' nests and sea cucumbers, and this expensive bottled iron supplement. Did the kid's dad send it? Nina joked. I glanced at them, pricey stuff. From my experience, it's likely not from the kid's dad, but his assistant. Before the divorce, I'd get gifts for birthdays, anniversaries, and other special days, but it was never Mark, always his assistant. He's too busy for gift giving. Besides, I was an unseen wife. Take what you like, there's too much for me alone, I said, kicking away a gift box, feeling a mix of frustration. Not being materialistic, but whether something's done with heart or not is obvious. Indifference is my biggest gripe. Don't worry, I'm not pregnant. I'll bring them in for you. You've been on your feet all day, get some rest, Nina said, pushing my fingerprint unlock and dragging me inside. Being a regular visitor, I logged her fingerprint in for convenience. She's young yet acts like a grandma, gossipy but caring. Emma, do you want a boy or a girl? She asked as she cut some fruit. Either is fine. Not picky, boy or girl, it's destiny. If the boy looks like you, the girl looks like her dad. You're pretty, hope for a boy, she said. If the girl looks like Mark, then? I shook my head, dismissing the thought quickly. It's my kid. I'll love them however they look, I said firmly. Honestly, I don't get it, Nina said, puzzled. Your career's peaking, with girls eyeing your position. Why not just let it go now? I smiled, looking far away. He's my only family in the world. Nina paused, eyes moist, hugging me. Then I'm the godmother, the only godmother. We laughed, munching on assistant-delivered gifts, as free stuff seems to taste better. First day back, the editor called me in. She's a savvy, no-nonsense woman in her 40s. Straight to the point, she said, we've got a big interview coming up, and everyone recommended you. Mind if I ask who it's with? It smelled like a setup to me. The editor shrugged, carefree, of course. Given your last performance, the episode interviewing Mark went viral, crushing competitors. We decided to strike while the iron's hot. Mark, as a business icon, holds audience interest. With your experience and understanding of his ways, you're the perfect pick, right? Seriously? I mean, you all decided and then came and asked me, like I had an option to say no. But hey, with my kind of relationship with him, especially with a kid, it's really not ideal to meet again. Editor, thanks a ton for the opportunity. Before, I'd jump at it and do my best. But right now, as you know, I'm kinda overwhelmed. I intentionally rubbed my belly, even though it's just the size of a bean right now. The editor glanced at my belly and nodded. We took that into consideration. Being a single mom is tough, gotta earn that formula money. Finish this task and you get a triple bonus. Hard to say no, huh? My dear editor, did you major in psychology or something? That's brutal. I chuckled nervously, knowing this task was definitely coming my way. She laughed, patting me on the shoulder. Being a woman out here hustling is tough, having some cash is always good. Darn money. Evil money. In the end, I lowered my lofty head. After thinking it over for ages, I finally called Mark. There was no need to stress too much as his assistant usually picks up. Hello. That deep, magnetic voice, it had to be Mark. Me. I lost my cool, forgot everything I planned to say. Emma, what's up? His voice had a hint of joy. I took a deep breath, calmed myself down, and got right to the point. We'd like to interview you again, whenever you have time. Sure, I'll have my assistant let you know the schedule. He agreed instantly. Thanks, Mark. We'll be in touch. I was surprised. Maybe it's because of the kid. Without the child, there's no way he'd agree so easily to an interview. Mark's a notorious workaholic, earning at the speed of light. There's really no reason for him to waste time with this. Nicely done. The editor gave me a knowing smile. I felt awkward, not realizing when she came in, but from the look on her face, she'd heard everything. Without introductions, snagging an interview with just a few words, it's not hard for someone with her experience to see the strings at play. When Mark showed up at the studio again, it was like I forgot to breathe. My pale pink suit fit perfectly, and since my pregnancy didn't show yet, I looked just like my old self. As we got through a few questions, the atmosphere relaxed, and I got into my zone. He was even more eloquent than last time, funny, smart, quick-witted. I wondered how many women of all ages he'd sweep off their feet once this aired. Midway through, we took a break. Tired? Drink some water. Mark handed me a thermos. I was stunned. In front of everyone, what's he doing? Back when we weren't divorced, he never did stuff like this. Now with this sudden gesture, was he trying to hint at our relationship? Thank you, Mark, you're such a gentleman, but I brought my own water. I forced a smile even though it came out more like a grimace. His eyes were locked onto mine, a smile playing at his lips. The interview went super smooth thanks to Mark's great mood, and I was thrilled to finish early today. Just like last time, I dashed out as soon as it wrapped up. In my rush, I almost bumped into someone. Emma, remember you promised a meal with me, right? I'm here for a recording today and flying out tomorrow. Let's grab dinner. It was Vincent, Nina's so-called boy toy, a pretty popular star lately. We'd recorded together before, he's charming and clever, and we got along. I only said we'd have dinner as an act, never thinking he'd take it seriously and even show up at the studio. Sorry, I've really got stuff to do today, maybe another time. I'll treat you for sure next time. I smiled weakly, hoping he'd let it go. Come on, what is it? Let me tag along, Vincent smirked, cheeky. Lord, I just wanted to smack that grin off his face. Right then, I felt warmth on my back, followed by that familiar deep voice overhead. She's going to take care of the baby, why would you tag along? Vincent and everyone around looked at me funny. Mark, damn it. We're divorced, what's this act? Emma, you and him? Vincent seemed like he was trying to underline the obvious. I covered my face, hissing, kid, keep it down. Mark calmly put his arm around my waist, pulling me closer. His voice was low in my ear, long day, huh? Let the driver take you home. You're gonna be a mom, no need to hang with the kids. Vincent's temper soared, he hated being called a kid. And who are you to dictate Emma's business? What's your relationship? He challenged. Mark ignored him, his eyes never even meeting Vincent's, crushing him with silence. As Mark tightened his grip, I found myself nestled closer to him. I looked up, met his gaze, and instantly felt he was up to something, seeing his mischievous glint. I struggled to step away, but he held me tighter. With a firm arm around me, he openly declared his claim. "Thanks, everyone, for your hard work. Coffee's on me. Emma's independent, so take care of her." Everyone started giving me looks. Then Nina swooped in and dragged Vincent away, who was fuming like a cat with its tail stepped on. Mark's assistant brought over exquisitely packaged treats and coffees, labeled the city's priciest. I drove myself home, seeking peace, quiet, just some time alone. Even after the divorce, has Mark changed? Why has he been so extra friendly? The thoughts gave me a headache, so I quickly washed up and went to bed. Around 6 the next morning, my phone rang. It was Mark's grandpa, my absolute favorite among the Marks. He wheezed into the phone about how he couldn't go on much longer. After offering him some comfort, I hurried to get ready and drove to the hospital. This was the place where my ex-mother-in-law worked as an exec. Grandpa had a luxurious single room, a crowd outside the door as chaos flared within. "Emma, you finally got here. Grandpa was raising hell all night and we had no choice but to call you this morning. Go inside and see him," my former mother-in-law said. I pushed the door open, mentally prepared, but I was still shocked. The room was a mess, almost everything was smashed, and the sheets were torn to shreds. Even a sick person shouldn't have this much strength. "Grandpa, are you trying to escape? Tying sheets together and throwing them out the window? That's what they do in movies." Grandpa in a hospital gown turned around, and when he saw me, his eyes turned red. "You ungrateful thing, you heartless one. I spoiled you, and you just left without a word. Mark's a little rascal, but how could you get divorced so quickly?" Hearing him say that, my eyes started to get watery too. We had no feelings, trying to force it wouldn't make us happy. That was my intention, but I got interrupted by Mark who had just rushed in. "Grandpa, we were wrong, are you okay?" He gently pulled me and half-shielded me behind him. "You little rascal. I'm not okay. I was almost angered to death by you. You drove Emma away, now what are you going to do?" Grandpa rushed forward and started smacking Mark on the chest and arms in anger. It was loud, and just hearing it hurt me. "If Emma doesn't forgive you, I won't live either. If I'm alive, there's no point, I'll jump out this window." Grandpa seemed to take inspiration from me and really wanted to attempt an escape. He sprinted and climbed onto a table, everyone was terrified. Mark was the first to rush over, followed by a few nurses from the entrance who helped pull Grandpa down. All morning he was acting like he was life and death. I was so tired I kept yawning. After lunch, Grandpa went to take a nap, but insisted he wouldn't leave the hospital unless I returned to Mark's home. Mark and I felt so helpless. You can't treat old folks like kids, it's just coaxing them. We went to a quiet spot in the hallway to talk. "What are you going to do about Grandpa?" I asked. "Getting back together seems impossible. I mean, I don't want to pretend. We should ask what he plans to do. Listen to Grandpa," he said. "We were a mistake from the start. I don't want it to get worse." I sighed. Mark looked at me, frowning. "You know, I've been reflecting. Knowing we had no emotional foundation, why did I agree to marry you? I wanted a home, a warm one, not a cold, distant husband. You're always busy with work, making me feel like an outsider. You never accepted me in your heart, otherwise, you wouldn't have suggested a secret marriage. Can't we just let each other go? Is that really how you feel?" He smirked, asking quietly. "I've felt this way for a long time now, just too silly back then thinking we'd grow to love each other. You are attractive, and I mean you're handsome. I won't deny that, I was drawn to his looks. But now, we have a kid." His eyes lit up, almost hopeful. "If we're not happy, the kid won't be either," I said. Mark looked like he wanted to say more but didn't and went off to get me lunch with his head hung low. Watching his lonely figure, I felt a pang of frustration. After a moment, my former mother-in-law came over and signaled me to join her on the balcony for some air. Outside was more comfortable, my nervous stomach and buzzing head calmed down a lot. Have some water, still getting bad morning sickness? She offered me a thermos as we sat on a bench. The thermos looked just like the one Mark had during an interview. Not as bad lately, I only throw up sometimes. I chuckled, politely declined, and didn't reach out for it. She opened it, and a refreshing herbal scent wafted out. My foolish son made it himself, said it would help with the nausea, nearly blew up the kitchen. I was quite shocked, even more than seeing Grandpa trying to leap out the window. After he came back from the hospital that day, he locked himself in his room. Didn't eat dinner, didn't open the door. The next day he came out and asked me what was good for pregnant women. He didn't go to the office that day, made his assistant take him to every maternity store in the city, bought a ton of stuff he thought would be good. Ha ha ha, typical clueless guy taste, did it scare you? She said. A mother mocking her own son is always cutting deep. It was quite surprising, my pantry's full and we might not finish it even by the end of term. I thought he just had his assistant buy it all at random. I muttered. Believe it or not, Mark actually likes you. She said with earnest. I was stunned and wide-eyed, like me? No way. He was more dismissive towards me. My foolish son, he's great at everything except his emotional intelligence. He's a workaholic who doesn't know how to delicately handle relationships, but he does like you. There's something you don't know. Right after you guys registered for marriage, he transferred shares of his company over to you. How's that possible? My jaw dropped. There are other things he hasn't told you, but he did. He's terrified of water, almost drowned when he was young and has a fear. But he went to the island for your honeymoon. He hates sweet foods, but he'd eat all of your pineapple cake. He's got a plain personality and likes black and white, but thought your colorful decor for the bedroom looked nice. I'm not just saying good things about my son, he's just a block of wood that acts but doesn't express, and it frustrates me. I pieced the events together. Yeah, all that happened. During the honeymoon, every time we got on a boat, his face darkened. I thought he disliked it, found it annoying. About the pineapple cake, he never said it was good or bad, so I just keep making it the way I liked. Mark really is a piece of wood. With that perspective, the gifts for birthdays and anniversaries weren't the assistant's doing. Mr. Mark has got to have the weakest attempt at wooing. Mark brought me some food, still warm and packed in a pink thermos. I took a bite, tasted good, but had a burnt flavor. Did you make this yourself? I hit the nail on the head. He tried to act naturally. Outside food is unhealthy, too oily and salty, no good for you. I was taking bites of my meal, and for a moment, I felt a faint warmth like home. Grandpa had been causing a ruckus at the hospital for 3 days, using all sorts of tactics like throwing a fit and making a scene. Lately, he started fiddling with the wall sockets, so the hospital got worried and sealed them up. Mark lost his temper big time, but Grandpa fired back even harder. I'm not sure what kind of sketchy agreement they reached, but Grandpa agreed to be discharged and signed a safety guarantee. I went back to work, and my coworkers were suddenly all up in my business, trying to butter me up. Honestly, I still kinda look down on it, but I won't lie, it feels nice being flattered. After work, Mark came to pick me up, and for the first time, he parked that fancy sports car right outside our company building. A gorgeous guy in a luxury car with a keep-away face. The stares were non-stop. I was honestly embarrassed, so I used my bag to cover my face and rushed over. He drove me home, insisting on coming up with me. I bought some groceries. I'll cook for you. He hauled 2 big bags of meat and veggies from the trunk, happily heading upstairs. This was the first time the posh CEO, who normally never lifts a finger, was heading to the kitchen. I was a bit worried. The last time he tried making something, he almost blew up the place with just a simple stew, so stir-frying might be risky. I snacked on a date, leaning in the doorway, watching him slice and dice. Smart folks catch on quick, huh? The first meal he made had this burned flavor to it, but this time, it seemed like he got the hang of it. 3 dishes and a soup were set on the table. "How is it?" he asked, looking hopeful in my floral apron. I nodded, "Not bad, it's pretty fresh." "Then eat more." He beamed, showing off his perfect white teeth. This human warmth really does soothe the soul. For several days, he came over to cook dinner and leave after cleaning up. I didn't ask him to stay, and he never pushed for it. One night, it started pouring with thunder and lightning. As he washed dishes, he gave me this pitiful puppy look. "Emma, it's raining," he said, even pouting a bit. A guy being cute, that's even more dangerous. "Fine, you can stay, but you sleep on the couch, got it?" I turned and headed to my room. Got it. Once something happens once, it tends to happen again. Like him crashing at my place. He's gone from cooking to tidying and now even watching TV and giving me massages. Sometimes, I think it's all moving too fast. I'm not totally ready to let go of the past. But sometimes, things just happen in a flash. He pressed his forehead against mine, breathing unsteady, holding himself up, careful not to crush me. "Just let me kiss you a bit more." That old sweetness came rushing back. We were so caught up, we didn't even notice someone coming in. Right in the middle of our kiss, Nina just walked in. I saw her first. She stood by the sofa, scaring the heck out of me. Then Mark got spooked too. He quickly grabbed the throw to cover me up. "Get out!" he shouted angrily. Nina finally snapped out of it, but instead of being scared, she was thrilled. "Sis, didn't I say you've got good luck? You really snagged someone like Mark. The baby's his too, right? Don't forget me when you hit it big." "I'll get out of your hair now, go on." Nina dropped her stuff and made a quick exit. After all that, the mood was busted. Mark fell back on the sofa, holding me tight. "How did she get in?" "Nina is my assistant. She's got her fingerprint registered." "I want mine registered too." He tightened his grip, lightly kissed my neck. "You planning on sticking around?" I giggled, squirming from the tickling. "She can come over anytime, why can't I? Plus, I want to make you dinner every day." He whined. "Come on, don't be like this. That's not the Mark I know." "Oh, and how's Mark supposed to be?" He chuckled. "Cold as ice, zero interest in anything but work, straight to the study when he's home, no sweet talk, no romantic surprises, and keeps everything to himself." He shut me up with a kiss, stopping all my complaints. "Wow, seriously," he said after the kiss. "As long as you know. It won't happen again, I promise." Mark proposed to me. Candlelit dinner, roses, and a diamond ring. Classic and cliché, but I loved it. He rented out an entire restaurant. Later, relatives told me he had 3 proposal plans ready. 2 of them were outdoor ones, meant to be public, romantic, and grand. Despite being a business whiz and a smooth TV interviewee, Mark chickened out when it came to popping the question. He picked the plain old candlelight dinner proposal. When he knelt with a rose and a ring, I nearly cried. Cliché it may be, but it works. "Emma, I once had love right in front of me, but never expressed it well. If you give me another chance, I'll be open about it. I love you, and have for many years. Emma, will you marry me?" "Yes, I will." I rested my hand in his, feeling his warmth spread through me. Now it's not just the baby binding me to the world, it's also Mark. Later, we held a grand wedding. Our little one was quite cooperative, quietly staying in the belly without a fuss. On our wedding night, my groom had a hard time keeping it together. I teased him, Mom would come storming in with a knife and lock you in the guest room. All right, I'll accept my fate." When asked why Mark wanted to have a secret marriage, he got all defensive. My anchor career was taking off, and getting hitched too soon could have been career suicide. He thought I'd refuse marriage, so a secret wedding seemed like a middle ground. Mark cracked me up. That laugh turned into tears when my eyes welled up. He's really such a classic straight guy. Through the pregnancy, I was treated like royalty. To take better care of me, my mother-in-law and grandpa moved in, which drove my husband nuts. Once, he could at least sneak a kiss. With 2 human monitors now, he couldn't make a move. Luckily, I'm due soon. The finish line is in sight. We've practiced going to the hospital for the delivery several times in advance. My mother-in-law consulted an experienced OB/GYN and drafted a super detailed plan and procedure. There's no way anything could go wrong. One quiet night, my baby was in a hurry to join the world. My husband was in his pajamas and looked like he was ready to take on an army. He fumbled around, grabbed the hospital bag, and drove the shortest route to the hospital. He only realized he forgot his slippers once we got there. His messy hair and panicked demeanor made him look just like a kid. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. The contractions were getting more frequent, and my baby was almost here. Being wheeled into the delivery room was the most nerve-wracking yet exciting moment of my life. I wasn't alone anymore. I had my grandfather, mother-in-law, and a loving husband. And soon, a child. Dad and Mom and Grandpa could finally relax. I gave birth to a boy. He looked like Grandpa, with a red, wrinkled little face that resembled an old man. Grandpa gave him the nickname Leo, filled with hopeful expectations. Wife, thank you. He held my hand tightly, eyes red with emotion. I had a natural birth, so I could walk by the next day. But my husband was still freaked out by the postnatal care. I smiled, too tired to do anything but sleep. The baby cried, his voice was loud and clear. Go check on the baby. I slowly opened my eyes and urged him. Grandpa and Mom are there. You don't need to get up. I'll move him to another room later so he doesn't disturb your rest. I smiled, feeling sweet and blissful. You should rest too. Don't just look after me, you'll wear yourself out. I gently pinched his fingers. I won't. My wife's so beautiful, what if someone steals you away? He asked, sounding more and more like a kid. That won't happen. I'll never leave you. Promise. Mark's epilogue. The first time I saw Emma, she was 6, and I was 3 years older, a teenager by then. She came to my house with Grandpa. Her deer-like eyes were beautiful. Mom said she'd grow up to be a beauty so many guys would like her. I didn't say anything but felt a bit down inside. She came over a few more times after that. We'd play at my house, and we carved our names into the camphor tree in the yard. Mark and Emma. Years passed, and the tree grew tall. The carved letters faded. She had probably forgotten by now, but I always remembered. We lost touch for quite a while until her parents passed away. At the funeral, she was 15, small and frail, yet her back was straight. Her face showed no sadness, and her eyes were dry. She obediently held on to Grandpa's arm. I knew she was really sad, and her strength moved me. That might have been when I truly fell for her. As we grew up, Grandpa proposed an arranged marriage. I agreed. No girl other than Emma had ever made my heart race like that. I hoped she would look forward to the marriage like I did. I planned to love and treat her well, like the stars in the sky. But then, by chance, I overheard her talking to a coworker. She said she had no plans to marry. Being a married female anchor would ruin her career, and she loved her job. I ended up being a burden to her. I felt guilty and even a bit resentful. All those years of longing vanished, and I felt down for a long time. So, we decided to have a secret marriage. It wouldn't affect her career, and I still got to keep her by my side. Everything she liked, I didn't seem to, but it didn't matter. I let her be. She often asked if I was unhappy. I was happy, but I just couldn't smile. Maybe I was born without strong smile muscles. A friend once said you have to show love to a woman so she can feel it. I might have overdone it. But I couldn't help myself, she was so sweet, and it made me lose control. I wanted to get home early every day to be with her. Just looking at her made me happy. But with the overseas branch just starting up, I had to keep up. Being a frequent flyer wasn't fun, but knowing she was home waiting for me made time go by faster. While I was away, she seemed to live freely, with rumor linking her to several male friends one after another. Mom was right, she was beautiful, and many men liked her. That feeling was terrible. I wanted to break free but felt powerless, and then she wanted a divorce. I felt like an idiot, I messed it all up. Instead of making her unhappy, I thought it'd be better to set her free, so I agreed to the divorce. 1 month after the divorce, I was almost collapsing. By chance, I had the opportunity to be interviewed by her. She seemed a bit off. When Mom called and told me she was pregnant, I was so thrilled I almost flew. Nothing could have been better timed than this child. Even if she didn't love me, she would love our child, and for the child, she would come back. After going around in circles, we were back to square one. I admit, I'm a bit of a blockhead, all straight male traits and poor at understanding women. And she's stubborn. Once she makes up her mind, there's no changing it. During those times, Grandpa's dramatic acts and Mom's proper guidance, coupled with my gentle persistence, eventually brought her back to me. Grandpa agreed to be discharged only after I vowed we'd remarry within 2 months. She accepted my proposal. It was a little cliched, but effective. In the end, we had a sweet, adorable baby boy. Grandpa named him Leo. Even more cliched. Must be that the straight male trait is genetic in this family. Hopefully, my son won't inherit that and have a tough time finding a wife. After all, I met my true love at 9, he'll have to work things out himself. Sometimes she'd ask me, silly and sweetly, why didn't I treat her like this from the start? Why did I take only 3 seconds to agree to divorce after being gone for 3 days? Back then, you acted like you didn't need me, so how could I disturb you? Was I really that bad back then? She'd wonder. I'd nod, successfully tossing the ball back to her. Some mistakes you just can't admit to, especially when divorce was never what I truly wanted. So, how about now? She'd smile sweetly, kissing me gently on the lips. Pretty good, pretty good. I'd say, savoring the moment. How about we have a daughter next? She'd say, snuggling into me, her eyes twinkling like a little deer, a temptation I couldn't resist. Subject to review. Not answering now. I leaned in and kissed her. A family of 3 is just right, for now. As for when baby number 2 will happen, we'll just let it be.